Hello and welcome to another edition of the DX Engineering video series. We're here today in Tallmadge, Ohio. We've got Thomas, Papa Alpha 1 Mike, and Timon, Papa Alpha 1 Tango, visiting from the Netherlands. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
And did you guys get lost or something? What brings you to Tallmadge, Ohio?
For instance, you. But we are really here for the Dayton Ham Convention. We visit every other year. Every year would be too expensive, and we really like it. We like the people, we like what we see, and it's a big event for us being here.
Yes, well, it's nice to have you. I've met both of you several times at Dayton, but tell us, what is amateur radio like in the Netherlands?
Well, amateur radio in the Netherlands is more difficult because the Netherlands is a very crowded country, and it's more difficult to put up towers. It's more difficult to put up big antennas, so it's smaller. Everything is bigger in the United States, but amateur radio in the Netherlands is smaller as in Europe, and especially in the Netherlands because of the space we have. You cannot have those big stations like W3LP, K3LR, you cannot build in the Netherlands, no space.
So how did you get started in amateur radio, Timon?
I started about in 1986 with a small tower with one Yagi, and I started on VHF, DXing, and later I got on to DXing on 6 meters because we have a technical license, and you start up in Europe, you start up in VHF and you promote to HF.
Okay.
In these days, those days it's different. You can have a novice license and start also on HF, but in those days it was mainly VHF.
Okay. And how did you get interested, Thomas, in ham radio?
About the same. I liked the radio, I liked the technology behind it, and like Timon, I started a few years earlier also on VHF. But I like HF better, so then you have to do a Morse exam. So we did, and then you change call sign from a Papa Echo 1 to a Papa Alpha 3. And later on, we were allowed to change call signs again, to have the shorter ones, because we became interested in contesting. And with contesting, time counts, so shorter call signs are better.
Right.
But like Timon, everybody in those days started on VHF, so we are still member of a VHF contest group for 30 years now, and all the members most of them are retired already, but they are still there. So yes, contesting is what's our part of the hobby.
So you're still active in that VHF club?
Yes.
And VHF is really big.
Yes.
In Europe.
In Europe.
It's huge.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
It's not so much over here. I mean, it has its place, but the VHF contests that are held here in the U.S., there's not much activity. No. But in Europe, it's much different, right?
In Europe, it's very much activity, especially from the German guys. And especially from the Oscar Kilo guys and the Italians. We are a little bit too far from the Italians to work them, but it's all about the space. So you can set up a VHF station very fast, have a small tower, and then you are active on VHF. And on HF, when you have to build a big station on HF, you need more space. We don't have that. Maybe in Germany. But most people, and it's also when you start in ham radio in Europe, mostly they start on VHF and then they stay in VHF.
Right.
That's why it's very active, and you can work a lot of countries in VHF. And grid square handling is very popular in Europe
as well
as mature scatter.
Yeah. And do you guys also belong to an HF oriented club?
No. No, we could be. We have in Germany the BCC, and there are a few big contestations in the south of the Netherlands or in the west. PI4 Charlie Oscar Mike, PI4 Charlie Charlie. Mm-hmm. But in the north there's nothing. So for the fun of it, we are the Woutbloem Counters Club, his station.
So it'll be 2018 before you'll come back to Dayton again.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but you have visited stations all over the United States.
Yes, yes. We mainly visit the stations here to see what they are doing, how are they building a station, and a radio is a radio. If you see a Czech, a radio here is a radio in Europe. But switching those radios to the antennas, how do they erect big towers? How do they guide them? How do they maintain the station? That's what we're interested in.
Right.
So putting a connector to a tower, everybody can do, but how do we maintain a big station? How do you see there's no interference from 20 to 15? And how do they tram up the antennas? Because we all use crank up towers in Europe. We don't use guide towers,
So
hardly.
So you learn a lot of things.
We learn a lot of things.
When you visit these stations.
Talking.
That's the major goal.
We love to talk to the people.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming and visiting us here, and we'll say 73 for this time on DX Engineering Videos.